पिछली स्लाइड पे एक दफा दोबारा इसको देख लेते हैं कि the cartilages, the smooth muscles, and connective tissue and the capillaries, they were all formed by mesenchyme, splanchnic mesenchyme, the mesenchyme that surrounds the developing lung. And this mesenchyme that surrounds the developing lung, I'm talking about this particular mesenchyme. Okay? This mesenchyme also at the periphery, at the surface, this mesenchyme develops into visceral crura. And then you all know that this developing lung bulges into, on both sides, you have the pleuroperitoneal canals. ये ठीक है, ये pleuroperitoneal canals on either side. This developing lung then bumps or bulges into the pleuroperitoneal canals as the lung grows caudally and laterally. अब ये towards the surface you have this developing body wall. Body wall जो है that is lined by somatic mesenchyme. Body wall on the inside is lined by somatic mesenchyme. इस somatic mesenchyme से bones, cartilages, etc. develop होती है. Body wall के structures develop होते हैं. So this lung tissue surrounded by mesenchyme that has developed into visceral crura. This developing lung then grows into this body wall mesenchyme. So part of the body wall mesenchyme is wrapped around this lung tissue. ये जो body wall mesenchyme that is separated from the mesenchyme of the body wall and is now surrounding this developing lung. This develops into parietal crura. ठीक है जी, quick recap. Now let's start with the development of lung proper. You have 4 stages of maturation of lung. The 4 stages are namely the pseudoglandular stage, canalicular stage, terminal sac stage, and alveolar stage. Okay, I repeat once again. It is the pseudoglandular stage, canalicular stage, terminal sac stage, and alveolar stage. The first stage is the pseudoglandular stage. This stage extends from 4th week to 16th week of intrauterine life. Okay. Now, in this stage, the developing lung simply resembles an exocrine gland. That is why it is called the pseudoglandular stage. True gland nahi, a pseudoglandular stage. ठीक है. अब इसमें all the elements of the lung are formed, but not the gas exchange mechanism. वो नहीं develop हुआ. सिर्फ जो conducting part है उसके सब elements बनते हैं. इसमें connective tissue भी है, उसमें blood vessels भी है, इसमें bronchi, bronchioles all have developed. लेकिन gas exchange elements develop midway. As a result, in this stage, respiration is not possible. So, with this stage, no respiration is possible. And if the child is born at this stage, obviously, the child is not going to survive because lung has not developed enough to allow survival of the baby. Then comes the canalicular stage. अब ये जो कैनोलिकल स्टेज है ना बेटा, दिस ओवरलैप्स विद द सूडोलैंगुलर स्टेज. वो इस तरह से कि जो cranial part of the lung है, that matures early, caudal part matures late. As a result, cranial part में कैनोलिकल स्टेज स्टार्ट हो गई होती है, जबकि caudal parts में अभी सूडोग्लैंडुलर स्टेज ही चल रही है. अभी जो कैनोलिकल स्टेज है, this is between 16 and 26 weeks. So between 16 and 26 weeks of intrauterine life, जो स्टेज है उसको हम कैनोलिकल स्टेज कहते हैं. अब इस स्टेज में क्या होता है, इस स्टेज में जो ब्रोंकाई और टर्मिनल ब्रोंक्यूल्स एक्सेट्रा, उनका जो ल्यूमन है ना, दैट बिकम्स लार्जर. ठीक है, वाइड हो जाता है, एंड ऑब्वियसली ये टर्मिनल ब्रोंक्यूल्स एक्सेट्रा ये इलोंगेट भी कर जाते हैं. अब देख लीजिए यहाँ पे, all these are blood vessels. These are all blood vessels. So the lung becomes a highly vascular structure in this. अब जो गैस एक्सचेंज एरिया है, पार्ट जो है लंग का, by the 24th week, the terminal bronchioles then divide into 2 to 3 respiratory bronchioles, and each respiratory bronchiole then divides into 3 to 6 alveolar ducts. Over here you have alveolar ducts. Okay. Some primitive alveoli are formed, इनको हम terminal sacs कहते हैं. The terminal sacs are simply primitive alveoli. Because of this, if a baby is born at 24 weeks or after that, up to 26 weeks, so survival is possible. Survival is possible, but generally this because respiration is not possible. Reason being that respiration is not just gas exchange. Gas exchange element तो फिर भी थोड़ा सा develop हो गया. Respiratory control नहीं है. The brain has not matured enough to control respiration. ठीक है, so breathing नहीं हो सकती, even though the gas exchange elements have started to develop. वो भी अभी पूरी तरह से develop नहीं हुए, they've just started to develop. So we are talking about the canalicular stage. Okay, now comes the third stage. The third stage is called the terminal sac stage. This stage varies between 26 weeks up to birth. ये जो period है 26 weeks to birth, 40 weeks तक. This period is called terminal sac period. ठीक है, terminal sacs जो है primitive primordial alveoli हमने उनकी बात की थी. Now 26 weeks onwards, ये जो terminal sacs है, these are the terminal sacs we're talking about. इनकी जो epithelium है ना, that becomes flattened. Okay, अभी तक ये देख लीजिए tubercular थी. Now this epithelium becomes flattened. Okay, and the other change that occurs is, you can see it over here, the capillaries now come close to these alveoli, and they actually bulge into these alveoli. So the endothelium of the capillaries and the epithelium of these alveoli, they become very closely associated with each other, and hence a blood-air barrier is formed. This blood-air barrier is vital for gas exchange. ठीक है ना, यहाँ से alveoli से across over here goes into the blood, goes oxygen, carbon dioxide and oxygen in the opposite direction. ठीक है, अच्छा जी. So ये जो flattened epithelium है ना, this develops into type 1 pneumocytes. These type 1 pneumocytes, they are for gas exchange. ठीक है, ये obviously ये सारी आपकी endodermal terminal sacs endoderm से line थे जो squamous epithelium की सूरत में देता है. And then of course you have other cells as well. The other cells are type 2 pneumocytes, and you know that these type 2 pneumocytes produce surfactant. So by 26 weeks, surfactant has started to develop, but the level of surfactant, the amount of surfactant is not enough at this particular stage. अब surfactant का आपको पता है last 2 weeks में इसकी जो है बहुत rapid increase in secretion of the surfactant takes place, and that is why in the last 2 weeks child born can survive, can well survive. By 20 weeks में इसकी production start हो तो जाती है, but the amount is very small. अब वो 26 से 28 weeks, between 26 to 28 weeks, certain changes takes place in the fetus that will help him survive. एक तो body weight जो है that increases to up to 1000 grams. So 1 kilo का baby जो है that can survive. Okay? Less than that मुश्किल होता है survive. Besides that, the alveolar sacs they are in adequate number, and the type 2 pneumocytes produce surfactant. We have enough of surfactant, level of surfactant in the fetus is enough for survival. Okay, so surfactant का आपको you know about surfactant, आप लोगों ने respiratory की हुई है, respiratory system physiology में किया हुआ है. You know surfactant lowers surface tension, allows the alveoli to dilate. The surfactant नहीं होगी तो alveoli collapse करता है. So you have by between 26 to 28 weeks, you have an adequate amount of surfactant. लेकिन less than 26 weeks, survival difficult. Survival difficult इसलिए होता है कि एक तो you have inadequate surface for gas exchange, meaning the alveoli are not well developed. ठीक है ना, alveolar surface area नहीं होता, since the alveoli are not developed or well developed. Besides vascular system, the lung is also not well vascularized. There are few blood vessels. जब blood vessels नहीं होंगी तो gas exchange नहीं होता, because it is the capillaries plus the wall of the alveoli, endothelium of the capillaries plus the wall of the alveoli that make up the blood-air barrier, which is responsible for gas exchange. If a child is born under these circumstances, obviously the poor baby is going to have severe respiratory distress. Now, over the years, with experiment, we've seen that if the mother is given corticosteroids, so survival of the baby is better, because corticosteroids stimulate the production of surfactant. अच्छा जी, आपको बताया था कि ये जो epithelium है, this becomes very thin. Alveoli epithelium becomes thin. The endothelium of the blood vessels bulges into it, and endothelium of the blood vessel plus the type 1 pneumocyte, they make up the blood-air barrier. ठीक है? As a result, the respiration is possible because of this. ये जो मेम्ब्रेन बनती है बिटवीन द type 1 pneumocyte, ये plus the endothelium of blood vessel. This is called the alveolo-capillary membrane. This is a very thin membrane across which gas exchange occurs. ठीक है, so अब ये respiratory bronchiole है, इधर ये respiratory bronchiole plus ये alveolar sacs हैं, plus the connective tissue surrounding this alveolar sac. Okay. ये सारा connective tissue है surrounding this. अब these sacules they give rise to alveolar ducts. Either sacules जो हैं इनसे alveolar ducts और इनसे फिर adaptive changes take place. अब एक बात याद रखिएगा कि at the time of birth alveoli are present, yes, but remember 95% of the alveoli develop after birth. ये जो mature alveoli है that allow gas exchange, they develop after birth. Before birth alveoli होते हैं, but they are only in the form of small bulges. Respiratory or terminal bronchiole की walls में small grapes होते हैं ना, so grape-like bulges, clusters वो होते हैं. They are all immature. They are not capable of. They are capable of. Some of them are capable of gas exchange, but maturity 95% जो हैं, they will actually develop. They will mature after birth. So postnatal life में एक तो respiratory bronchioles increase करते हैं, alveoli का number increase करता है, और ये जो सारी development है ना of alveoli, this goes up to 8 years of life. 3 to 8 years में ये maximum हो जाता है. ठीक है, अब होता क्या है? In postnatal life, the size of the lung increases by increase in number of the alveoli and the respiratory bronchioles, alveolar ducts, alveolar sacs. इनका number increase होता है. अब alveoli का number कैसे increase करता है? This alveoli, existing alveoli, is divided into two by connective tissue septa. Connective tissue septa इसमें bulge करता है and divides this alveolus into two. अब ये दरमियान में जो connective tissue septa है ना, initially तो ये thick connective tissue septa होगा, but then gradually this connective tissue septum becomes a very thin septum. Gradually ये septum thin out बन जाता है, and this alveolus, single alveolus, gets divided into two. इस side पे और this side. At the time of birth, you have around 150 million alveoli. Adults के मुकाबले में तो this is half the size, because adults में you have adults between 3 to 8 years, up to 8 years, 8 years तक के बाद भी you have around 300 million alveoli. So at the time of birth, you have half the number of alveoli that are present in a mature lung. So because of this, alveoli कम है, vascularity ज़्यादा होगी, connective tissue elements ज़्यादा होंगे. As a result, the lung appears dense. जब बच्चे का newly born baby का lung X-ray लेते हैं, तो lung is dense. Okay, यहाँ पे when you have 300 million alveoli, तो फिर lung जो है वो typical जो उसका appearance है. अच्छा जी, अब what happens at the time of birth? The lungs at this time are full of fluid. ये fluid अब amniotic fluid होता है, ठीक है? एक तो amniotic fluid होता है, उसके अलावा ये जो आपके ट्रिकिया के ग्लैंड्स हैं, लंग के जो ग्लैंड्स हैं, then जो ब्रोंकाई की जो epithelium है उसमें ग्लैंड्स पड़े हुए हैं. All these gland produce secretions, and these secretions accumulate in the lung, inside the lung, alveoli, etc. Now this fluid needs to be removed. अब ये कैसे remove करेंगे? देखो बेटा, एक तो ये कि at the time of normal delivery, when the baby passes through the birth canal, because of the pressure of the birth canal, the chest is compressed, puts pressure on the chest, and squeezes fluid out of the mouth and the nose. ठीक है. दूसरा पल्मोनरी ब्लड वेसल्स में ये चला जाता है. ये देखिए यहाँ से पल्मोनरी ब्लड वेसल्स में चला गया, प्लस ये लिम्फेटिक्स. At the time of birth, ये lymphatics, they are widely dilated. The fluid then enters these lymphatics. The number and size of the lymphatics rapidly increases at term. Okay. But then after a few days, the number of lymphatics reduces. अच्छा जी, ये दो different stages थे. Now, do we have any questions before we go on to the anomalies? Any questions, people? Before we go on to the anomalies of the lungs? I suppose not. Achha. Now, what happens to the lung in oligohydramnios? Oligohydramnios, you all know, is decrease in the amount of amniotic fluid. अब ये decrease क्यों हो जाता है? या तो amniotic fluid जो है constantly leak कर रहा है, और it is not produced in ठीक है. So it is either leakage of the amniotic fluid or decreased production of the amniotic fluid that produces oligohydramnios. अब उसका रिजल्ट क्या होगा? लंग का हाइपोप्लेजिया होगा. लंग का हाइपोप्लेजिया होगा तो रिस्ट्रिक्शन होगी फीटल थॉरैक्स. फीटल थॉरैक्स रिस्ट्रिक्ट होता है, मूवमेंट एडिक्वेट नहीं होती, बिकॉज एज अ रिजल्ट लंग विल बी हाइपोप्लास्टिक. Respiratory distress syndrome, जिसको हम हाईलाइन मेम्ब्रेन डिजीज भी कहते हैं, 2% of live infants में we see the child with respiratory distress syndrome. This premature infants are especially susceptible to this respiratory distress syndrome because you all know is deficiency of surfactant. Now, the baby born with hyaline membrane disease presents with rapid labored breathing होती है. The lung is not inflated properly, underinflated होता है. There is fluid present in the alveoli. ये fluid जो होता है, that is rich in proteins. ये proteins कहाँ से आती हैं? They either come from the injured lung epithelium. Lung epithelium की इंजरी की वजह से ये प्रोटीन्स रिलीज होती हैं, और इट कम्स फ्रॉम द सर्कुलेशन, और इवन जो आपके इंजर्ड टाइप 2 न्यूमोसाइट्स हैं, इनसे भी ये फ्लूइड आता है. और ऑब्वियसली जब टाइप 2 न्यूमोसाइट्स when they get injured, so they fail to produce adequate level of surfactant. अब ये सारे ये जो fluids which is rich in protein, ये fluid, this looks like a membrane, a glassy membrane. That is why it's called a hyaline membrane. Now, why does it happen? We don't know. They've tried to study the hormones that are deficient at this time they could not come up to any conclusion, but one thing they noticed was that the hormone thyroxine and glucocorticoids इनका level कम होता है. So by giving thyroxine and glucocorticoids, this distress, respiratory distress syndrome could be handled. In fact, इसकी treatment जो है, the mother is given corticosteroids, betamethasone. Even आपके exogenous, corticosteroid यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है, surfactant, exogenous surfactant, वो भी देने से baby. I'm talking about the baby that is born and is suffering from respiratory distress syndrome. उसको फिर exogenous surfactant देते हैं, and that is the best if it is available. Otherwise, betamethasone, which is corticosteroid, would be right. The other thing that I was talking about was if a child is born prematurely, mostly premature infants when you know, so the mother has gone into labor, and the child is about to be born prematurely. In that case, the labor pains are slowed down, and the mother is given exogenous surfactant, or if not available, the mother is given corticosteroids, because that helps in lung maturity, that helps to produce surfactant. Okay, you already know all this. Azygous lobe. Okay, this azygous lobe is produced by the azygous vein. ये right side है, right upper. Okay. Occasionally, what happens is the azygous vein जो है, it has to go and drain into the superior vena. Okay. In order to do so, it passes through the substance of the right lobe of the lung, upper right lobe. Instead of passing from here, from the medial side, it passes to the lateral side, passes through the lung lobe. As a result, part of the lung lobe is trapped. This results in the azygous fissure band जाता है, and ये जो lobe that has separated out from the upper right lobe of the lung, this is called azygous lobe. ये azygous fissure band. This is an extra lobe. Congenital lung cyst, ये इसमें, ये जो है, ये this cyst is either filled with fluid or it is filled with air. It results from dilatation of terminal bronchi. So terminal bronchi, they get dilated. The reason is obviously bronchial development जो है, वो faulty है. There's fault in the development of bronchi. As a result, dilated bronchi develop. Normal bronchi की जगह dilated bronchi develop हो जाती है, which appear as cysts. ये अगर तो एक आधी cyst है, fewer cysts, तो फिर तो reappearance है. If you have multiple cysts like this, तो फिर the lung gives a honeycomb appearance. Honeycomb आपको पता है, छत्ते की तरह. And ये जो cysts होती है ना, ये periphery of the lung की तरफ, yeah, mostly at the periphery of the lung. So this is a very interesting, मैंने net से diagram ली है. This is the normal lung. इधर देखिए, there is no lung. Lung develop ही नहीं हुई एक side. This can be a unilateral and a bilateral problem. Bilateral हो तो it is not compatible with life. दोनों lungs नहीं बनी तो बच्चा तो breathe ही नहीं कर सकता. Then the child dies. Intrauterine life में survive करता है because intrauterine life में जो lung का जो function है that is taken over by the placenta. But अभी बनता होता क्यों है ऐसा? Lung develops from the lung bud. अगर lung bud नहीं बनेगी तो the lung will not develop. तो इस side पे lung bud बनी, you have a normal lung. On this side there is no lung bud, so the lung did not develop at all. अब उसका रिजल्ट क्या होगा? एक तो ये देख लीजिए, ये जो हार्ट है, then this develops, then it is, this heart is pushed into the empty hemithorax. ये side empty है, there is no lung, so the heart pushes onto this side. Plus ये जो lung, normal lung जो है, जो develop हुई है, this becomes hyperinflated because it has to now compensate for the absent lung. So this, the lung that is present is hyperexpanded, hyperinflated, and the mediastinum, the heart, pushes towards the empty hemithorax. अच्छा जी, lung का hyperplasia ये देख लीजिए. This is normal looking lung. ये hypoplastic lung है, small lung, very small lung. अब क्यों होता है? This happens in cases of congenital diaphragmatic hernia. Congenital diaphragmatic hernia में, you know that the contents of the abdomen, stomach, intestines, etc., they push into the thorax. So the thorax, there is lack of space. When there is no space, the lung does not expand, it does not develop adequately. Normal development of the lung because of lack of space. Lack of space है congenital diaphragmatic hernia की वजह से. अब इसके फीचर्स क्या हैं? एक तो स्मॉल साइज लंग, ठीक है, उसका साइज ही नहीं ग्रो किया. प्लस अब इस केस में जो मसल्स हैं पल्मोनरी आर्टरी के, वो hypertrophy कर जाते हैं. They become thick, and when they become hypertrophy, they obviously उनका lumen narrow हो जाता है, and they produce pulmonary hypertension. अब because of this pulmonary hypertension, there is decreased blood flow to the lung. When there is decreased blood flow to the lung, so the lung insufficiency of the lung does not grow properly. The baby, the child dies. Accessory lung, something very rare, very uncommon. अब ये जो accessory lung है ना, ये develop करती है at the base of left lung. ये देख लीजिए. This is the right lung. This is the normal left lung, and this is a very small accessory third lung, which is present at the base of the left lung. This lung has its own flora, it has its own blood supply. लेकिन the interesting thing is कि इसकी जो blood supply है, that comes from the thoracic aorta. Either blood supply is coming from the pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein. Okay, यहाँ पे systemic blood supply होती है. thoracic aorta से veins जो है वो thorax में green करेंगी, pulmonary vein में green नहीं करेंगे. And there is no connection with the normal tracheobronchial tree. इसका अपना ही mechanism है. So this is just an extra thing which has nothing to do with the normal respiration. I think this is the last slide, and so we finished with another of the topics in embryology. Now just two topics are left: development of the pharyngeal apparatus, yeah, development of head and neck, plus nervous system development that we do as we do the brain. Do we have any questions before I move on to what we left in gross anatomy last time. Any questions so far? कोई क्वेश्चन है बेटा? नहीं है. So there is no question. Good. I am glad that you understood everything. Very intelligent students I have, I must say. अच्छा जी, उस दिन आपने मुझे कहा था you were having trouble with the optic nerve. मैं optic nerve को repeat कर देती हूँ. So now are you with me? I guess you are. Optic nerve आपको बताया था, उसने भी बताया था, it is a purely sensory nerve. कोई मोटर कंपोनेंट नहीं है. बेटा ये एक बहुत कॉमन क्वेश्चन है आपके एमसीक्यूज में भी, आपका वाइवा क्वेश्चन है. नेम द प्योरली सेंसरी नर्व्स, जिसमें नंबर 1 पे ऑल्फैक्टरी आता है, नंबर 2 पे ऑप्टिक नर्व है. आपकी 8th cranial nerve भी प्योरली सेंसरी है. ठीक है. So it is a purely sensory nerve. By purely sensory nerve, I mean this nerve has no motor component. ये किसी मसल को किसी और चीज को सप्लाई नहीं करता. It is only concerned with vision. अच्छा जी. And I also told you it is supposed to be an anterior extension of the forebrain. Diencephalon की extension कहते हैं इसको. This nerve starts with the ganglion cells of the retina. This is basically the axon. This is the retina. The neural part of the retina. इसका innermost layer जो है वो ganglion cells की है. In ganglion cells के जो axons हैं, they make up the optic nerve. And since it is an extension of the brain, so it is surrounded by meninges, dura, arachnoid and pia matter उसी arrangement में. And between the arachnoid and pia, you have the arachnoid space over here. यहाँ पे ये जो है ये subarachnoid space है. ये arachnoid है, ये dura है और ये innermost pia matter है. This is the subarachnoid space और इस subarachnoid space में cerebrospinal fluid है. And running through the center, right through the center of the optic nerve, you have the central artery and the central vein of the retina. These two structures pass through the center of the optic nerve. अच्छा अब ये याद रखिए कि ये फाइबर्स है, ये स्क्लेरा है, ये कोरोइड की लेयर है, मिडिल लेयर, सेकेंड लेयर, the vascular layer of the eye. eye के 3 कोड्स हैं, sclera, the fibrous cord, choroid, the vascular cord, and the neural cord is the retina. ठीक है. So अब ये जो सारे fibers हैं optic nerve के, जो axons, all this is the optic nerve. All this is the optic nerve, the neural retina. Sorry, optic nerve नहीं, neural retina है. ये सारा retina है. यहाँ तक न्यूरल रेटिना है. ठीक है. और अगर न्यूरल रेटिना है, न्यूरल कोड ऑफ द रेटिना है यहाँ तक, दैट मींस इट हैज गैंग्लियन सेल्स. जो गैंग्लियन सेल्स के जो एक्सॉन है वो यहाँ से भी आ रहे हैं, वो यहाँ से भी आ रहे हैं, हर जगह से आ रहे हैं. एंड देन दीज एक्सॉन्स दे मेक अप द ऑप्टिक नर्व. अब बेटा these axon pierce all the layers. ये कोरोइड को भी pierce करती है, ये स्क्लेरा को भी pierce करती है, and then it goes out. So ये जो स्क्लेरा है, यहाँ पे ऑप्टिक नर्व उसको पेयर्स कर रही है, वो स्क्लेरा तो बिल्कुल छलनी की तरह हो जाता है ना, so that is why it is called lamina cribrosa. तो अभी तक ये जो ऑप्टिक नर्व, ये जो axons हैं, up to here these axons are non-myelinated, but when they come out of this place called the optic disc or the lamina cribrosa, यहाँ पे outside the optic disc these fibers of ये जो axons हैं that make up the optic nerve, they become myelinated. ठीक है, posterior to lamina cribrosa ये optic disc है, और outside this या posterior to this these fibers of the optic nerve they become myelinated. अब ये देख लीजिए the optic nerves in the orbits, ये इतना हिस्सा सारा orbit में है. In the orbit ये देख लीजिए orbit में the optic nerves run posteromedially, pass through the optic canal. अब optic canal से जब ये emerge किए, the two optic nerves they cross each other, and crossing of these optic nerves forms the optic chiasma. ठीक है, अब ये देख लीजिए कि ये pituitary fossa है ये सारा. So the optic chiasma is lying on top of the pituitary fossa. Pituitary fossa में you all know the pituitary gland, hypophysis cerebri, is lying inside the pituitary fossa. So यहाँ पे you have pituitary gland, and lying on top of the pituitary gland is the optic chiasma. So दूसरे लफ्जों में ये कि if you have a tumor of your pituitary gland, it's going to be on the optic chiasma, obviously. ठीक है, ऑप्टिक chiasma की बात कर लेते हैं. अब ये ऑप्टिक chiasma है बेटा. इस ऑप्टिक chiasma में देखिए ये रेटिना, ये सारा, this is the medial half या nasal half of retina, this is the lateral or the temporal half of the retina. This is the nasal या medial half of the retina, this is the lateral or the temporal half of the retina. So each optic nerve contains fibers from the retina, from the nasal half of the retina, from the temporal half of the retina. When it comes to crossing over of the optic nerves, crossing over of the optic nerves to form the optic chiasma. ये optic chiasma बन रहा है. अब इसमें fibers कैसे cross करते हैं? इसमें जो nasal half के जो fibers हैं, जो medial half of the retina के जो fibers हैं, they cross. Medial half of the retina के fibers cross over, ये cross कर जाते हैं. लेकिन जो temporal या दूसरे लफ्जों में lateral half of the retina है, इसके fibers they do not cross, they remain uncrossed. So जो lateral या temporal half of the retina के fibers हैं, they remain uncrossed. ठीक है. Rising from the posterolateral angles of the optic chiasma, you have this structure which is called the optic tract. ये optic tract है. This optic tract ends in the lateral geniculate body. ठीक है. अब इस optic tract में आप देखिए कि you have uncrossed fibers. हम अगर right optic tract की बात करें, ठीक है, ये right optic tract है. इस right optic tract में you have uncrossed fibers from the right nerve, ये, जबकि you have crossed fibers from the opposite nerve. क्योंकि crossed fibers nasal half of the retina. So temporal half के fibers of the right side that do not have not crossed, or nasal half of the retina के fibers of the opposite eye. ये ठीक है. अब जो एक चीज और मैंने आपको समझाई है, इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. बेटा ये नेजल हाफ ऑफ द रेटिना है. इस साइड पे जो नेजल हाफ ऑफ द रेटिना इस आई की बात कर रही है, इस पे टेम्परल साइड से rays come and form an image on the nasal half of the retina. इस आई में, जबकि जो टेम्परल हाफ ऑफ द रेटिना है, इसमें you have these fibers, sorry, the image from the medial side or from the nasal side falls on the temporal half in this eye. So ये जो सारा area है, when you look straight ahead, what you see is the field of vision. इस field of vision में जो nasals, I'm talking about the left eye, nasal side से जो image है that falls on the temporal half of the retina, जबकि जो temporal side से जो image है that falls on the nasal half of this eye. Right eye की बात कर रहे हैं, इसमें from the temporal side से the rays fall on the nasal half of retina, जबकि nasal side से जो rays हैं they fall on the temporal half. So opposite side से आते हैं. Do I make myself clear? Do we still have any question? Because अगर आपने ये समझ लिया है तो फिर आपको इसकी further लेके चलते हैं. Visual field effects. जी बेटा, I am coming to you. Okay, thank you very much, my dear. It's clear, because now we do something that is extremely important from your Viva point of view, from your examination point of view. लेकिन उससे ज़्यादा from your practical point of view, fourth year में, आई में, final year में, medicine में, बेटा ये जान नहीं छोड़ती आगे जाके practical life में. This is extremely important. So इसको समझ भी लो और इसको याद रख लो, ठीक है? If अब हम visual field effects करने लगे, temporal side से nasal पे drop करेगा image, nasal side से ये temporal half of the retina पे image drop करेगा. बस ये एक basic इसमें है. अच्छा, अब हम if we cut the optic nerve, अब इसमें ना temporal side से भी and nasal side से temporal side से, अब ये जो fibers हैं they cannot go ahead. lateral geniculate body में नहीं जाएगा, visual cortex में नहीं जाएगा, कुछ भी नहीं, कहीं पे भी नहीं जाएगा. So in this eye you're going to have total blindness, काली होगी, नजर ही कुछ नहीं आ रहा, ठीक है? So in this particular eye, left eye का damage है, left eye की optic nerve का damage है, so left eye goes totally blind. Next क्या आता है? दूसरा सूरत में ये देखिए, अब हमने ऑप्टिक क्याज़्मा को डैमेज कर दिया। मैंने आपको उसमें बताया था ऑप्टिक क्याज़्मा डैमेज होता है since it is lying on the pituitary fossa. Pituitary fossa में pituitary gland है। pituitary gland का अगर ट्यूमर होगा तो वो इस पे प्रेस करेगा ऑप्टिक क्याज़्मा को। अब ऑप्टिक क्याज़्मा को अगर हम डैमेज कर देते हैं, ये डैमेज हो गया। ऑप्टिक क्याज़्मा पे आपको पता है नेजल हाफ ऑफ द रेटिना के फाइबर्स जो है ये क्रॉस होगा, ठीक है, जबकि टेम्पोरल हाफ ऑफ द रेटिना के फाइबर्स दे रिमेन अनक्रॉस्ड। नाउ व्हाट हैपेंस इज हमने ये जो क्रॉस्ड फाइबर्स है नेजल हाफ के, दीज क्रॉस्ड फाइबर्स आर डैमेज्ड, तो काट दिया हमने। उसका रिजल्ट क्या होगा? अब सिर्फ टेम्पोरल हाफ के फाइबर्स रह जाएंगे। In both the eyes, the fibers of the temporal half of the retina are left. Now you know very well that the temporal half reads from the nasal field of vision. The temporal half of the retina will read the nasal field of vision. So nasal field of vision will remain, जबकि ये जो यहाँ पे जो temporal field of vision, since it was forming an image on the nasal retina के fibers have been sectioned. So since nasal side reads the temporal field of vision, the temporal half, this is damaged. So the patient will complain कि उसको temporal side से नजर नहीं आता, जबकि जो medial या nasal side से जो images हैं, they form okay, they form all right, but lateral side से he cannot see. इसको bitemporal hemianopia कहते हैं। Bitemporal because both temporal sides are gone. Hemi is half, bitemporal half blindness on both sides. Is this clear? Any questions? नहीं, ठीक है। लास्ट वन। अब ये देख लीजिए, हमने ऑप्टिक ट्रैक्ट को काट दिया, ठीक। अभी डिस्कस किया था कि ऑप्टिक ट्रैक्ट में फाइबर्स जो है ये कम फ्रॉम द nasal half of one eye and temporal half of the other eye. So अगर मैं लेफ्ट ऑप्टिक ट्रैक्ट की बात करूं, इसकी मैं बात कर रही हूँ, लेफ्ट ऑप्टिक ट्रैक्ट में टेम्परल हाफ ऑफ द रेटिना से फाइबर्स आएंगे और राइट आई के nasal half fibers आएंगे. I repeat once again. If the left optic tract is damaged, left temporal retina, temporal half of retina, इसके fibers, they remain across, they pass to the left optic tract.
नहीं मारा था तो फिर वो मैंने कहा तो फिर मैं ज्यादा मार्क्स तो बिल्कुल क्लियर हो जाता।
Right side nasal half of the retina के right side के fibers आएंगे।
अच्छा
नेल पॉलिश ये कहाँ पे मारा? डब्बे से?
डब्बे नहीं मारे, पहले मैंने बॉल पॉइंट से बनाया था।
मारा नहीं, ये नहीं है ये।
ठीक है, अब इसका रिजल्ट क्या होगा? आपको पता है कि ये जो टेम्परल हाफ की जो इमेज है ये नेजल हाफ ऑफ द ऑप्टिक, ये जो विजुअल फील्ड है, nasal half of the visual field is appreciated by the temporal half of retina. So इस साइड पे, डैमेज साइड पे जो nasal visual field is gone because it is forming an image on the temporal half of retina, or temporal half of the retina is gone. ऑपोजिट आई पे देखिए, ऑपोजिट आई का सिंस क्रॉस्ड फाइबर्स जाते हैं तो ऑपोजिट आई का जो नेजल हाफ ऑफ द रेटिना, इसके फाइबर्स आर सेक्शनड. Nasal half of retina is appreciated by the visual field temporal side. So opposite side पे temporal half of the visual field. बेटा ये जो है ना sectioned and normal, ये visual fields represent कर रही है. ये बात याद रखिएगा. इफेक्ट जो आ रहा है वो visual fields में डिस्क्राइब हो रहा है. डैमेज हमने इसको किया है, but this damage is producing effects in the visual field. So these are basically visual fields. ठीक है. So affected eye का nasal half is gone क्योंकि temporal fibers damage हुए हैं, and normal eye का temporal field of vision is gone क्योंकि nasal fibers damage हुए हैं. As a result, अब आप देख लीजिए दोनों विजुअल फील्ड्स एक ही साइड की, लेफ्ट साइड की. ठीक है. सो दिस इज लेफ्ट होमोनाइमस hemianopia. Now do we have any questions? Anything you want me to repeat? अच्छा, this is extremely important. Please इसको समझ लो. अगर आप सिंपली ये याद रखो कि ये जो डिफेक्ट डैमेज बना हुआ है, डिफेक्ट बना हुआ है, ये विजुअल फील्ड का है, तो शायद आपके लिए थोड़ा आसान हो जाए. So anything that you want me to repeat, anything that you have not understood, please, you still have time. You still have time for that. So अगर आपने ये करना है मुझे बता दीजिए. अगर कुछ रिपीट करना है तो प्लीज मुझे बता दीजिए. No questions? सब समझ आ गया? No questions. Okay. जी बेटा समझ आ गया मैम. Thank you very much बेटा. And I wish you the best of luck for your next test, whatever, जब भी हो गए. ठीक है. So best of luck and Khuda Hafiz from my side. Inshallah, and we'll see you on Tuesday.